Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be moving into a quick executive session. Can I have somebody move that?
Move it.
Second. Okay, so Nick, Jen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. Okay, we will be right back. All right, thank you for joining us. We just came out of our executive session with the purpose of discussing matters that were pertaining the filling of a vacant board seat. Action 1.03, can someone approve the agenda?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. In the event of emergency this evening and we need to evacuate the building, we do have 2 exits to our boardroom. Please take your nearest exit out of the building and move away as far as possible. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There is nobody signed up for public forum this evening. Can I have somebody move action 1.07 to approve the January 27th regular meeting minutes?
Move it. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. Action 1.08 to approve the January 27th budget workshop.
Move it.
So I have Nick and Lori. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 6-0-0. Okay, for our president's report this evening, we have a few meetings coming up over the next couple of months. Tomorrow is our NYSBA Lobby Day. It is in Albany. Has anybody decided if they're able to attend that tomorrow? Okay. We do also have on the 12th a meeting with our Assemblyman Willard Barkley. It will be at Mexico, their district office on Fravor Road at 3:30. That is being put on by the Oswego County School Boards Association. Do we have a few people who are attending? Lori, you're still going? Doug is going?
I plan on going.
Nick?
I'm not able to make it now.
Okay, and I know that I'm hopefully being
Yes.
able, Jess, are you going?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm gonna try to hopefully make it through a Zoom link that Mr. Ciappa is going to be putting forth. So hopefully I will be able to tune in, but we know that we want to speak with him about some, and it was unfortunate that we heard that he will not be seeking
Correct.
election for.
But
that
at the event
position.
I was at, he said he is fulfilling the rest of his term and will be there to represent us, so.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
And he's always been really good with what our needs here in Oswego County are. So if anyone has, Jen, if there's anything that you want one of our board members to bring forth.
Thank you.
Just please let one of us know and we'll make sure he
Thank you.
hears it. Yeah,
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, winter recess is coming up pretty quick.
It is.
Hopefully, we don't have as snowy of a winter as we did last year, so that if you're not traveling south, you can enjoy a little bit of a, I don't know, New York warmth. But definitely a time for our staff and our students to, you know, kick back, relax, and enjoy some family time, so that will be wonderful. Policy meeting is on February 18th, that will be virtual. Our Battle of the Book of
We'll have a
each
district
building.
battle here at 4th Street that will be live streamed.
Which day is that? Because that one is not on our, because we have March 4th for, it says Volney Battle of the Books.
That one is probably their still their district level.
Okay,
I'll go pull their-
okay. And
Or their
then,
building level, I'm sorry.
and then our district level will be here, and that will be live streamed?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, and you'll get a date for us for that.
Right now.
Perfect. All right, so just let us know when you're ready with that. We do have some health and safety meetings coming up. That will be virtual on the 24th. Also have another budget or another Board of Ed meeting on the 24th, but we also have Title I Family Engagement also has their meeting coming up March 2nd. They have 2 meetings. You can do it at 9 o'clock or the 6:30 slot, in person or virtual, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that has been working well with being able to open it up and
We
getting
would love to have
community
more
members?
folks attend.
So please,
So-
if you can't make it to us in person, please tune into the Title I budget meeting, engagement meeting, either at 9 or 6:30 virtually, and we would love to have you join us. So,
March 11th.
okay, so March 11th will be our district-wide Battle of the Books. Days on March 9th, and another board meeting on March 10th. As many of you are aware, we had a colleague that needed to step down for medical reasons last board meeting, and we just kind of want to bring the community up to date on what our process is for filling that vacant board member seats. We had a couple of options that we could go with. What we could have opened it up to a community vote, which we, the board, decided not to do that, as it will just be a temporary fill-in for, well, till the next election, which is in May. So it's about 7 meetings, a few budget meetings and whatnot over the next 13 weeks. That would have cost the community quite a bit of money to bring in a vote, and by the time we got our vote done, it would have cut that time in half. So we decided to, you know, save our taxpayers' money and go a different route. We have opened it up to the reason why you're joining us, and hopefully anybody who's interested in the community of joining the board will throw their names in for the next election, because there will definitely be some seats open at that point. So if you're considering joining the board, please go ahead and get that out. And pretty
Because-
quickly, Mrs. Shrewd will have that lineup for us for when our, you're picking up for signing in sheets and that for the official board elections will be. Yes, Mr. Connors?
Yeah, I was gonna throw in with the official elections, just so the public knows as well, which will be in that 13-week time period, because we couldn't hold a vacant seat until then. That election, whoever receives the most number of votes, it was previously, whether it's the person who steps in or whether it's somebody who's completely new in the community, that person will immediately take over that vacant seat, no matter who was picked in the end. So that's important for you to know for your choice.
Yes.
It'll just be the regular election, so we're not holding 2 elections costing thousands of dollars in a couple of weeks, pushing it out for a couple more weeks until we have the full election.
Yes, thank you for putting that in there as well. So at our ratification meeting, which is, what our budget vote is on Tuesday, the 19th. So on the 20th, when we do the ratification vote, that's when our current fill-in position would be ending, and whoever wins the budget or the vote for the next board member would start on that day, on the 20th. So this filling in for our colleague who stepped down is just until the next budget or next board vote. Any questions or anything anybody else wants to add? All right, so we will have the announcement of who it will be filling in for us at our next meeting. And with that, I'm going to turn it
Okay.
over to the superintendent.
All right, thank you. So we have 3 different items this evening on the superintendent's report. The first one is we have Ms. Stango here with us this evening. She's going to highlight a little bit for us our students who, from the junior high level, who have made area all-state. So I'll turn it over to you. I believe, yeah, everything's already up there.
All right, should I
Thank
say
you.
it here, is that okay?
Sure.
All right, first of all, I want to apologize for the 70s situation. It was Spirit Day or Spirit Week at the junior high, so that is why.
We love it.
So I'm Jen Stango, I'm the music department facilitator, and I'm here to present about junior high area all-state, which just happened on January 30th and 31st. It's a special festival because it's only been around for a couple years, whereas some other counties have had the junior high edition around for a longer amount of time. So junior high area all-state, we're in zone 4 for NYSSMA, the New York State School Music Association. And it encompasses Oswego County, Oneida, and Herkimer counties, but other counties that don't participate in the zone can also petition to be involved. So for example, Norwich, which is down in towards the southern tier, was involved as well, which is pretty cool. It encompasses grades 7 through 9. Ninth graders, depending on their NYSSMA score, could also go to senior high area all-state, and it all depends on what their NYSSMA solo was the previous spring. So every May, we send students to Solo Fest at Mexico Middle School, and they can do a solo levels 1 through 6, and depending on the level and depending on what they get from the adjudicator, it will qualify them for area all-state. So all of our students did a solo who qualified, and they choose them by teacher recommendation, and they try to incorporate an even number of representation from the different school districts. And we could go to the next one, thank you. So students prepare 4 pieces in preparation for the festival, so that's after school time with teachers or coming down during a learning lab. Some of them work with private instructors. And at the actual festival, they rehearse for 2 days and they present a concert. This year it was at Camden Middle School. And for our band students who participated, this was only 2 weeks after Oswego All-County. So the students that participated were learning music for their regular ensemble in school, another 4 pieces for All-County, and then another 4 pieces for area All-State. So they were pretty involved in the month of January. And here were all of our students who qualified. I did list alternates on here from the junior high and GRB. The last student on there, Stephen Pitsley, he actually did not do a NYSSMA solo last year, but there were a number of students that had to drop out, and they put out countywide, hey, is there somebody who has a student who can fill in? So he was the one who was chosen to fill in with like 5 days notice and did an awesome job. And you can go ahead and read their names. And that was whoever we could round up at the actual festival in their concert flat.
And I'll put it back for the names for a few minutes.
Yes. And these are students from GRB and the junior high. A couple 7th graders on here as well, which is not as common because they're usually not doing as high of a NYSSMA solo when they're in elementary school. They're usually only doing a level 1, so.
So our 6th graders would go to
6th
do
grade.
that, meaning, because if they're 7th, when, isn't it from the
It
previous
was
score?
based on their 6th grade solo, yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
wow, that's
Yeah.
great.
So upcoming, we're registering students this month for Solo Fest this upcoming May. That will then qualify students to attend next year.
That's fantastic.
So we appreciate your continued support in both NYSSMA Solo Fest and Area All-State, and we were grateful to be able to represent as much as we did this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you.
All right, so we also have a few guests with us here this evening. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hendrickson. We're going to focus on the discipline process that we have in place here in the district. Just as a, I'm not going to steal any of your thunder, Mr. Hendrickson, but I know as I was interviewing for this position, this was something that we had had some discussions about, wanting to make sure that we had processes in place that were very similar throughout our buildings, and that our students, when going through things like a discipline process, you know, we were taking very similar and common approaches. So we thought it was important to highlight some of that for you tonight, but then also to open it up for any questions that the board might have. So Henderson.
I'll let the team introduce themselves. They want to jump up in there and say hello. You know them all, but they can let you know who they are.
Hey, Murray, one of the principals in the high school.
Tammy Sheldon, I'm the Director of Student Support Services. And I'm Desiree Saladin, Director of Special Education.
So we will just quickly kind of go over our process, what systems we have in place, maybe be able to answer some questions, talk about where we are, where we're looking to go forward with what we've done over the last few years as well with our discipline process.
So these should be pretty familiar graphics by now. We wanted to make sure that, with the graphic on the right, we're beginning with the end in mind. All the decisions that we're making, all the things that we're doing with our students day to day and over the course of the day really is to prepare them for their future when their lives move well beyond our schools. And then the graphic on the left represents our strategic coherence plan. We strongly believe that the way that we approach teaching and responding to behavior in the district really sets the tone for the climate and the culture in our schools. As Mr. Lawrence had mentioned, we've spent a lot of time talking about the systems and structures that provide the framework for how we teach and respond to behavior. And we spend a lot of our time teaching and then thinking as adults about the language that we're using with kids and how we, as we're responding to behaviors, that we are also reteaching and trying to develop interventions and responses to help them learn from whatever mistakes are happening, to prevent the same mistakes from happening again, and trying to develop a plan to move forward. Similarly, we want to approach teaching behavior and responding to missteps with behavior through the lens of teaching. I will say that over and over again. We want to be firm, fair, and consistent. We want to make sure that students are learning from mistakes and that we're learning different ways to help support them in making different choices in the future and making proactive and positive decisions from the outset. We want to make sure that we're protecting students' rights and safety. We reference and align our responses with the code of conduct, and we're referring to that constantly all the time. Again, we want to work on developing skills. We relate back to our social emotional learning benchmarks. We want to develop self-advocacy and social skills and responsible decision-making with kids. And when harm has been done, we want to work on repairing harm and allowing kids to understand that the choices that they're making have an impact on their peers, their community, and their schools at large.
So one of the things that we focus on in terms of what Mr. Sheldon was talking about, the teaching piece of this, we have clear behavioral expectations that we're outlining. We use the SOAR acronym, which is used in each of the 3 levels that we have, and they're appropriate to each age level. We have explicit instruction around specific behavioral expectations that we're looking for in our buildings. We have an inclusive school culture where everyone is involved in the creation of what we're looking for. We also work on our staff capacity in terms of making sure that they're trauma informed, that the practices that they're using and the responses that we're using to student behavior and the teaching piece, and we have ongoing professional learning, which is happening all the time. And when we respond, we try to provide support in any kind of crisis, and learning is always at the baseline where we're trying to get students to make sure that they understand, and staff, where they're at and where we're supposed to be. So we use progressive discipline as much as we possibly can. So every situation is going to depend on some different reaction or what happens, but we look at the severity, we look at frequency, we look at developmental level of the students, and we look at prior interventions that have been used, and we try to make sure that each student has a plan, and again, they understand what the expectations are, and when things are not going the way they're supposed to be, we lean back on teaching.
So this comes around to us having a shared code of conduct across all of our buildings, but then again, like Nate talked about, that idea of the acronym for SOAR, for self-control, on task, achievement, and respect. That is a pre-K-12 expectation or set of expectations for all of our kids. You can see we have a matrix at each level that's developmentally appropriate for the kids, what that looks like in different areas. and again, that idea of teaching and pre-teaching the expectations, so it's not just reactive, because I think part of those trauma-informed practices is when a student is in crisis or having a tough time, it's about support, and then when they're at baseline, it's about teaching. We know that it's tough for kids to learn in the moment, but once we get them back to baseline, then we can reflect and look and figure out what we can do to move forward with that. So another part of this is defining our behaviors and looking at like our major and minor guides, so getting our adults on the same page, reteaching expectations as often as possible, looking at where consequences are appropriate, and again, those 4 areas that we want to look at: severity, frequency, those kind of things as far as we want to do. And then looking at the interventions that are in place to help support our kids as part of the learning of this. So it's not just the consequences, it's kind of the teaching and reteaching to get the change in behavior over time as well.
So everything that we do is, really thought out when we're thinking about all the interventions that we put in place for our students. We are always thinking about why are we seeing what we're seeing. So behavior planning is for all students, right? So as we said, we start out obviously with tier 1, and we have our SOAR matrix and all those things that we're teaching all of our students. But then we also might still have some students that need additional teaching, additional reinforcement, and things like that. So we always want to start out with identifying what's the root cause, why might we be seeing certain types of challenging behavior from different students, and those reasons of why the root causes might be different for those different students, even though they may look the same outwardly. So we're always trying to identify that first, so that then we can develop plans that are specific to that student. And those plans can be a lot of different levels. So just like we have for our instructional tiered levels of supports, we have the same thing for behavior. So these might look like things like interventions that take place in the classroom. We have Chico, we have 2x10, different strategies that teachers can do with students directly in their classrooms. We also have then kind of moving up the continuum, we have things like PTR plans, which are prevent, teach, reinforce plans. Those are a little bit more structured. They might involve, a few more additional staff and a little bit more focus on multiple different people to implement them. And then our highest tier of direct intervention would be a behavior intervention plan. Again, those are very structured plans, multiple different components that we really need to work in tandem with all the folks that are, meeting those students' needs. So we develop those plans. They're aimed to, again, teach reinforcement, so the students know what we want them to do, and then also replacement behaviors for those challenging behaviors that we see. And then, of course, teams are meeting on an ongoing basis to review data, what we're putting in place, is it working, what do we need to adjust. So when it comes to students with disabilities, there are, there is still the same foundation as far as the code of conduct that obviously still applies for all students and, everyone in the district. Our behavioral expectations still apply. We are teaching those students all the same, what we want to see in the setting, as we do for all of our students. So all those things still apply. There are just, noteworthy, there are some additional procedural protections for our students with disabilities. There's a procedural safeguards notice that goes to students with disabilities and their families multiple times during the year, including when discipline, might be taking place. These things are aligned, obviously, with state and federal law. There's really specific procedures that have to be taken depending on, the severity or the course of, what took place behaviorally. And of course, like we just said, different plans, everything is team-based. Everyone experiences a student and, how they're engaging during their day and what they might be displaying. So we want to have all of those pieces together when we're making plans for students.
And just to clarify on that,
Yep.
those are the document, in situations where someone says, we're dealing with this, but they don't have an official certification and stuff, those things don't apply in these situations, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean by certification.
As in IEP 504, have a plan in place where if someone were to come in and say, well, they suffer from this, but there's no actual doctor certification of a disability or anything, then those things don't apply in a given situation, correct?
So sometimes,
That's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, so we also do have to act under what's called or considered as presumable. So if there's a student who may not have had an initial eligibility determination meeting, for example, for an IEP, but maybe those pieces have begun to be in motion, and so maybe a referral is submitted, but a IEP meeting has not, been held to determine if they're eligible. We do have to, in some of those situations, consider whether we would have to presume if the student would be identified with a disability. There's a lot of nuance to those kind of situations, so sometimes it's not as clear cut. Those kind of things don't happen very often though. Typically, our teams have a very good beat on where our students are, what their needs are. If a student needs, to be referred either to the 504 committee or to the Committee on Special Education, typically those things have already occurred, especially with our students who are struggling, so.
And also, not every disability is a visible disability.
Absolutely, yep.
I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, so one kind of last piece that sometimes comes up either with our students with 504s or IEPs is a manifestation determination review. Big long phrase, we say it all the time. But so what that really is, again, this is part of our students' procedural protections. So this might occur in situations where a student has, maybe been assigned a suspension for a certain period of time or has accumulated suspensions over a certain number of days. And so we have to meet to determine, is the challenging behavior that we're seeing, is that related essentially to the disability, and whether that's a disability for a 504 or a student with an IEP. So that's a really structured group team meeting. New York State has set out, really clear guidelines for all of those discussions. It requires teams to look really in-depthly at a student's plan, share information from all the relevant viewpoints of everyone who works and knows with the student, and then answer some really specific questions to help make that determination. And depending on the outcome of what that committee determines, that may impact how a student, their behavioral needs are met. It might determine whether they're eligible for additional suspension for a conduct incident or perhaps not. And if not, because maybe there's a connection, a manifestation, then teams are tasked with figuring out if this is a need that is associated with a student's disability, then what can we do to help that student learn and prevent the same thing from happening again in the future. And what kind of things do you do with students who they are connected to their IEP or 504? Because you'll often get people thinking, okay, hey, that nothing's been done with this student. So do we look to see if this is an environment where they should be? Is there something that we're specifically doing as a district to help the students correct that behavior? I mean, I know we do the reteaching part, but, getting into sticky. Absolutely, it could be those, it could be lots of different types of things. So for a student who, for example, doesn't already have a formalized behavior intervention plan, part of the steps from New York State is to initiate a functional behavioral assessment, and again, get a really clear picture of what is the targeted behavior, what is the function of it, why is this maybe occurring, and put in place a formalized behavior intervention plan, which I had mentioned before is kind of the highest tier of formalized behavior plans. So if that had not been in place, that would be required to be conducted and be in place. If this is a student, so like I had said, some examples, if a student is continuing to experience challenge and potentially experiencing suspension for over 10 days, this type of process would happen more often. And again, then those kind of patterns are what teams are exploring and thinking about as far as what additional supports might need to be in place. Maybe it's a counseling referral, maybe it's lots of different things, so it's student dependent.
So then it falls back to our multi-tiered system of support. So looking at all these things, we consider what works school-wide, district-wide, is like that tier 1 support. What do we do for groups or subgroups of kids that need more support along the way, and then individually. We have teams set up where most intensively, we have intervention teams that meet on kids. Our student support teams meet regularly about students and groups of students. We have problem-solving teams that meet about every 6 weeks. That includes the building support and the grade level teams to talk about student progress with this. And then we have the culture teams that meet and talk about building-wide and district-wide systems. So as we look at the data along the way that we collect through School Tool, we look to identify patterns and trends, look to see where the behavior is occurring, what time it's occurring, what might cause some of these situations so that we can react, both for individual kids, groups of kids, and large. Like we noticed in the hallway at this time, there have been a lot of referrals, so let's put some things in place to support that time so that we can cut down on some of those referrals ahead of time. And that's to, of course, help inform our continued improvement and look to make some changes with those areas. So a lot of it is that white circle of systems. What are we doing as the adults to help support our kids with that?
And Jeff,
Yep.
is that, I guess, responsibility-wise, per building head, is that your level? I just think, sometimes, people in the community are saying, okay, well, we're hearing this is happening here. And some of those things we implement, it's not like something's gonna change overnight. We all seek that instant gratification, but that's not how the real world works. So is there somebody, specifically on task to say, okay, we're implementing this change because we're seeing this behavior at this time, whatever. And then, okay, we've done this for 2 weeks and we're not really seeing a difference in that. What are we gonna try next, or what didn't work? So I just wondered where that falls in the chain of command and who's kind of the backup to make sure that if it's not working, what can we do to work together to change that?
That works from the top down and the bottom up. Like it is really us meeting regularly and discussing that, looking to see what kind of reports we're getting, what our data tells us, how we're informed. We meet with the directors and principals regularly to discuss those kind of things and look at some adjustments that we can make. The culture team meets and we get input from the teachers and the teams. We meet both with the adults, but then the students meet regularly as well. Both of those teams meet monthly and we take feedback from them about what's going on, what we see. I don't know, anything else that you can think of that?
But speaking of specific plans, that each building has SST meetings weekly. We also, the elementary level has scheduled PST meetings, which is in groups of students that we're looking at data. And those are every 5 weeks scheduled, so we're constantly looking at if an intervention is working, if it's not, how we're making those adjustments. And then we also have individual intervention team meetings where those are individual students looking at their plans and meeting. We usually set dates and how frequently we come back. So those are systems that we have in place.
So I
Carrying
think-
those through UPK to 12, that's always an ongoing thing that we're working on weekly.
We had multi-tiered systems of support coach for a couple of years. That was Carlo originally and then Lynette. And part of their job was they were tasked with building the system across the district that had layers built within it to look at how do we have like district level support all the way up to individual student support, making sure that we were systematically looking at that. And we continue to follow those structures that are there. So I guess to answer your question, yes, and it's all of us and it's as needed depending on how, if it's not making an adjustment along the way, then it kind of shoots up to the next level and we look to see what else we can do.
Thank you.
So, looking at data, we didn't bring the data specifically because there's a lot of it and it becomes a little bit of a mess, but to try and present to the board. But I will show you what we have in School Tool is the ability to look at dashboards. This is the advanced analytics dashboard. Up at the top where it says drill down, we have lots of choices where we can look at discipline, we can look at attendance, we can look at academics, but with discipline you can look at current discipline, historic discipline, discipline within a range of dates. You can look at class, school, all those kind of things. Like for instance, I pulled a couple of those quick reports. You can see there's a primary, like the grade levels of students who have received referrals in a building K6, so you can look and see kind of where your hot spots are. And in that case of that one, quickly, just so you can kind of understand, what's showing up in red are students who have received multiple referrals for majors. Yellow is 2 to 4, I think. And then, so red is 5 or more. Is it 5 or more? It's 5 or more. Yellow is 2 to 4, and then the green is 1 major there. That's one building, so you can kind of see those numbers. And then another thing that we can look at is we can drill down to location. You can see one outweighs all the rest, and that's something we've looked at for years. Classroom, where do kids spend most of their day? Or where should they spend most of the day? In the classroom. So if it's working well, we should see most of our referrals coming from the classroom because that's where a majority of our kids are spending their time during the day as well. So we kind of look at those kind of things, drill down, ask questions. Again, oftentimes data doesn't give us the answers, but it makes us ask more questions, and then we dig and dig until we can kind of get to an answer, which is usually an action or an actionable thing that we can do with that to try something, respond to it. That's the whole idea of response to intervention. What's working? What can we do more? So these are the key takeaways from this. We do look at this as instructional first. What can we do to instruct? Discipline is progressive. It doesn't start at 0 all the time. When it's a significant thing, it goes straight, some things go straight to Doug. There are other things that we have to kind of address as they come along, and if we're not fixing them, then we look at the next level and what we can do. So that's part of that progressive piece. We try to be as consistent as possible across the buildings and what works developmentally for our kids. So there's the instructional part. How we talk to a second grader about the behavior is much different than how we talk to an 11th grader about their behavior. We try to be as consistent as possible. Our teams talk about this regularly, what we can do. We look at scenarios and kind of talk about how we can make sure we're on the same page. And then more than anything, we want to make sure that we're following the code of conduct, that our actions follow that, and that our data confirms that we're in alignment with that. So those are kind of the big 3 that we look at regularly. More questions?
Can we, as a board, ask to see specific data? Is that like a later question, or is it an?
It can be. We can look at specific. I didn't know publicly, like, it gets a little tricky. I didn't want to put anything up there that would have student information.
Right.
So if you want to give a list, I'm sure we can dig into some of that, put it in board back if you're looking for specifics.
Yeah.
Or if we wanted to talk more about that.
Okay.
And Doug,
Yes.
did that work well last time when we did we emailed and included everybody that, like, these are some topics we wanted you to look at, and then
Yes.
because I
Yeah,
know
that would
one
be-
of our board members did that, and that seemed to work really well for specific information we were looking for.
Yep, yeah, so email me.
Okay, thank you. What's our process to measure alignment with the code of conduct? If there's a general feeling that the staff isn't feeling consistency, what do we do then?
So part of that is the staff surveys. It's spending time talking to staff and getting some feedback from them about that, and then looking to address systems. I know there are things that are constantly in the works, where we're trying things. We actually, Mr. Murray and I just talked about a plan last week, something we're gonna try to boost some of that and try to increase some of the response to some of the discipline that's going on in that building. But that's a regular for all 6 of our buildings to kind of check that. I guess it's keeping an ear to the ground and seeing what people are saying, being out and about and listening to folks, seeing what they're thinking, what they're hearing, what they're feeling with things.
Have we done specific surveys to staff in the buildings for things that you have heard that are going on recently, like this year?
So we do our strategic plan that we get feedback from all 3 stakeholders, the students, the parents, and the staff. We then, leadership teams are like councils and school culture teams meet regularly, and that's part of the agenda on each meeting, where they bring up what's going on, what's happening. Part of our problem-solving teams and like cabinet meetings that we have at the high school, that's points of discussion. This is something that we're noticing, something that we're seeing, making sure that people are documenting and that's one of the things, being able to look at the data and saying, oh, we are seeing that supports what you're saying, because we want to make sure that we've got that, so we can say, this was an issue, this is how we addressed it, this is what happened as a result of that.
Have we had those, so we have had those specific surveys? I know like the cell phone issue is a new one that everybody is dealing with, probably more in the junior high and high school. And I just have heard, it's not working in some particular buildings, and the staff sometimes doesn't feel supportive. Have we had surveys about that kind of stuff? And do we still do smart passes? The computer ones? Are we still doing?
We don't do
okay.
smart passes.
And I was just wondering, because that was a concern about like the hallway behavior and people not, and
Yep.
the kids not being where they're supposed to be. Have we had any specific surveys to staff about those issues?
So I know that we have done like our tiered fidelity inventories where we go out and kind of do random sampling questions where we check in. Those have been done in buildings. As far as official surveys, that's something, we just did a trial with Parent Square with parents this last week and had pretty good response. That's also available for staff, so we're thinking that might be a quick way to get some staff responses. So that's something we're looking at. What you just talked about, I know that a couple of the principals and I have talked, and Doug have talked about specifically responding to what you're talking about. Some of that hallway stuff, like, again, that white circle of systems, what are the adults doing in the building to help curb that? Because just saying like, hey, don't do that, doesn't necessarily do it. So it's the behavior that we're gonna control as the adults. If we wanna see some change, what are we gonna do behavior-wise ourselves to change some of that behavior? So like,
So do we have a plan in place?
working on plans constantly, but yes.
And I guess to that point then, so the systems you're using to identify these issues, the issues are making it to you through the current systems, you know, to be able to then, it's not like we're hearing things and you guys aren't hearing them. You're getting them through the systems you have in place. It's just then putting the right things into place to figure out. Because again, I mean, cell phone, that's an issue everywhere for a lot of people. So I imagine as long as you're getting that part of the system effective in the sense that you know what the problems are that exist.
I think we're always looking to refine and make our system stronger and better. So hearing any type of concern, it makes us ask, okay, where is it breaking down and how can we make it a smoother process? So adding the polls to Parent Square, adding additional tiered inventory checks. It can be a way we can put specific questions out to ask both students, families, and teachers about an issue that we're seeing.
Yeah, so I guess the question is if we use data to drive improvement, if we don't know the frequency of how often it's happening because it's not consistent, because everybody isn't on the same page, how are we using that data
Are you
to be
questioning?
improve?
You're questioning that if it's not being
If it,
told, if it's not actually being given,
if
the
it,
data isn't being written down.
right, because we're sort of ignoring behavior.
So part of that process, and I think this is something that we look at often, is it being reported and are we doing something about it?
Yes.
Because if we don't do something about it, it stops being reported because nothing is being done about it.
Right.
So I think that's part of that constant cycle of, okay, like for instance, Renee and I just had a meeting where we found out some things that we weren't aware of. We're responding to that. So like, okay, now that we know it's been reported, are we gonna respond and then make some of those changes? When people see that, if they see that there's enough, like if it becomes stagnant, this is just happening, then I'm gonna stop reporting it. That happens across our district in spots, and we have to be very aware of that. Like, oh, this is the way it is. And some of those things are unacceptable. And I think like our leadership team identifies that and says like, okay, this is something like, you know, this is the way it is, but it's not good enough. So what are we gonna do to make some changes to that and address that? I know, like, for instance, bathrooms were questioned for a few years. We've got some systems in place where it's gotten much better. Is it as good as it should be? Probably not, because we still have issues, but it's gotten better. So then we look at what are the next hotspots, what are those kind of things? And reminding teachers, and again, responding to that. If we say, make sure you write a referral and document what's going on, and then we don't do anything with it, people are gonna be like, that's a waste of my time. So if they're gonna document, we need to be able to respond and support them and say like, here's what I did, here's what's going on. And most importantly, this is all about learning. So is it changing and shaping some of that student behavior? And there are places where we see that happening regularly, and then areas where we have to do more work. And I think that's part of that constant coming back around and asking the questions and being able to look and identify those things and being willing to say, it's not good enough.
So would we have the tier fidelity surveys about like the specifics that are going on in buildings? Would we be able to find out like what type of questions if it's being enforced, or do our teachers have clear expectations, and are they consistent expectations, and are we enforcing them? Because I feel like we're going to be at a baseline and maybe see a spike, but it's not going to be change behavior unless we're consistent and everybody's on the same page from the top down.
That was your question and your answer all in one.
Like, yeah, well, do we have that? Is that what the surveys were asking?
That's part of it. So it's identifying what we can respond to, and then can that response be systematic and occur over time so it becomes the culture, right? There's that outside circle. This is what we respond to, this is what we adhere to, this is what is important to us. And I think going back to, again, us going to the behavior solutions last summer, and we're gonna go back this year, looking at those big system-wide, like the SOAR expectations. What does that look like? What do we expect? Are we seeing that in every classroom? Are people holding kids to that level of expectation for what happens? And is that consistent? We know consistency across, well, you know, kids see 6 or 7 teachers in a day, maybe more than that, adults in a day. You know, from parenting, sometimes it's hard to be consistent between 2 adults when we're responding to something. So us getting those systems in place and making sure that people are responding in a similar way, and then our admin teams are supporting them and being able to move forward is really important. So that's something we're constantly looking at, because that consistency, really defining that this is the area that we expect you to be in is important, and then adhering to it. Because some kids will stay right in that area, other kids will try to bust through every wall that they can. So like, we want to make sure this is what we expect of you, and everyone expects the same thing.
If you look at the middle square there where it's red, it says continued calibration. So that's something at our leadership meetings that we'll do is we potentially have just tabletop discussions, throw out a scenario. Now, how would you respond to this? And then discuss. And that's where the calibration comes in. So here's the situation, how would you respond to it? Elementary level, secondary, and then are all the secondary people responding to this situation the same? If not, talk it through. Why were you thinking this? Why, could it be done differently? So that's important for that piece.
I think also it's important, just for clarity.
Yeah.
We're taking a look at our policies as a district this year. We're redoing those, reworking those as much as possible to make sure that they're up to date. We're taking a close look at our code of conduct again this summer to make sure that that's aligned properly. So then we're providing the proper support for our administrators, our teachers, our families, our students through that. And then student handbooks as well, and making sure the expectations are crystal clear. So those are 3 biggies that we're really making sure this year and into the summer we're going to be reviewing to make sure we're rolling out next year with even more clarity. If that makes sense.
I feel like I know you guys feel like it too, just being in education, we have so many policies, we have so many expectations, we have so many things in our code of conduct that you almost feel like you're in a hamster wheel, right? Because you're the continued calibration, and you throw out a scenario, well, I feel like we have different scenarios every minute. Have we ever thought about maybe taking, the top 2, like, real big issues in each building and solving that? And then you'll have a trickle-down effect. Like, we can't do anything about cell phones. That's the law now. So what are we doing to make sure that our kids do not have a cell phone? And focusing on that one issue. And our students will see that we're consistent and we mean business, and maybe that would have a trickle-down effect with the other issues that would arise.
We have a protocol, the 5-step data process that we go through, and at our leadership meetings, we'll put data up, and we'll work through each one of the steps, and it is exactly that, identifying what do you see as trends, and then there's action steps. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna process through that? So, yes,
So what have we done about the cell phone issue, if it's still a huge issue?
Well, that is a topic that we haven't looked at that data as a leadership team, but there's been
Do
other
we
ones
have
that we
data?
have talked about.
Because if there's not consistency, how do we have data to even know that there's a problem? I guess you know what I mean?
We do
I
have
think
some
the
data.
cell phone issue is a little different because we're not allowed to do any suspension based on it.
They're not allowed to have them, but they do.
I think it comes down to the language too.
You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean?
So
Yeah.
one of the things that we do is it's creating culture with cell phones too, is we continue to bring it up, continue to address it. That's happened multiple
But are
times this
we?
year.
Do we have data?
You
to
asked your
say-
question
do-
about consistency and following through with that. a big part of what we do as an admin team is making sure that our adults are following through with their expectations, right? So if one person allows it, if two people allow it, that's what we're trying to be on top of, is making sure that we're pretty consistent with that. Actually, Doug and I just talked about that today. Looking at instructional time, it is way improved, and again, it's not as good as it needs to be. We've been kind of paying attention. I think we can, looking at those tiered fidelity inventories, talk to people, because you're gonna get some different opinions, I think, with cell phones right now. And to your point of, that if people see it as important, they're gonna write it up. If people don't see it as important, they're not gonna write it up. So looking at consistency of that idea of calibration, and one of the times when we're gonna be sticklers about this, because I think to Jess's point, like, we're not suspending for cell phone, but we can write up for kids not following adult expectations and directions. So looking at those kind of things and making sure we're on the same page. And again, what's developmentally appropriate. At the high school, it looks different than the junior high. It looks different than the elementary schools. But for the most part, if an adult asks you to be compliant and follow their directions, you're expected to do so. So those are things we want to follow up with and look at.
Have we done anything to, do we feel like we had to do anything to change directions, or change direction with let's just use the cell phone? Yeah, have we done anything different than we have at the beginning of the year?
A couple times we've readdressed and brought it back up, and there's that reteaching, bringing it back up to the forefront and saying like, hey, remember, this is the expectation, this is what we want to do. It's probably a good time to kick that off a lot of times with that reteaching, those expectation reviews after breaks. So probably when we get back from winter break, it's a good time to say, hey, parents, families, kids, remember, if you're gonna learn at school, this is what's expected. These are the rules, here are the guideposts, stay within them, this is what we're looking for.
And I think too that it doesn't just end there. There has to be some form of accountability for our staff as well, because, maybe our teaching staff is allowing it, and then our, paraprofessionals and our aides are the ones who would normally write them up, but they're not doing that anymore because, well, in Jen's class, they're allowed to use their cell phone. And you guys are hearing it, I'm sure, because if we're hearing it, you guys have to be hearing it. And the cell phone is still a huge topic that is confusing to our families because it's not being consistent at building levels.
Well, it's not consistent with our families either. Like, there are families who say like, you're
Agreed.
not gonna take my
Agreed.
child's phone away.
So how do we help this, I think is what you're asking is.
Right, I mean-
We don't have all the answers yet, this is our first year, we're trying our very best to do, but so what are we doing for the second part of the year and into next year that, from the get-go, at the start of next school year, that our kids are taking this, serious. Okay, yeah, that's great that maybe math class and, social studies classes are, you're not seeing it during instructional times,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is, we're still seeing it in the hallway, it's still being allowed in lunchrooms and study halls, and
I was in the high school and it was just a huge red flag that, the kids, I saw for myself, they're in the hallway, they're walking by the main office and they have their phones out like it's just a regular, like I'm taking out lip gloss or chapstick and putting it on my lips. That's the feeling. And is it gonna be perfect? No, but that was just a big red flag. Like if you're doing it there, you're not even trying to hide it. You're just looking down and just.
Yeah, we've been re-reviewing and re-reviewing and re-reviewing cell phones. We do have some things we've been working on behind the scenes, not ready to go there right now
Yeah.
in the middle of a board meeting, but definitely something that we're working on, and I think you'll see changes coming.
But it is reassuring to know that during the core instructional times that kids are starting to.
How do we measure that though? How do we know? Is that part of the survey? Like, are you asking me as, a phys ed teacher, how do you know that or do you feel like instructional time has increased with, is it my opinion, or how do we measure that? Increased instructional time?
Well, with those fidelity inventories, it's gonna be more opinion-based. The data is, again, comes back to whether or not people are gonna write it up, if it's something that they do. So, there's always those variables that matter with that. So, like when you ask about instructionally, to your point, I still see a phone out in the hallway. it's been a long time since I've seen a phone out during instructional time. Like, when I'm walking by classrooms and I'm looking in there, it's not happening. But I agree, it needs to get better in the non-instructional time, like when kids are sitting on the bench in the hallway, or if they are grabbing them at the end of the day, or during bell passing. Those are things that we need to adjust. But that's what I'm talking about with the adult expectations.
I guess
How
the
do we
bigger question
reinforce
was
that?
just the data itself, like how do we, if we're using data to drive decisions and making sure we're getting better, do we actually have the data
To do that.
to do that? Do you know what I mean?
Maybe not just necessarily for cell phone, but all areas of concern, the data.
I don't know if
As
you,
much as we can. We have our systems, our school tool systems, those things that are in place, our data collection pieces. Our
Just-
willingness to adhere to those and have people collect the data, that's always an ongoing issue, and that's where that calibration comes in. If something bothers me, it should be the same kind of level as you, and we should write it up. Like, that's where we look at our major minor guide, for instance. Like, we look at inappropriate language versus abusive language. Like, making sure we're on the same page for that, and what does that look like for a write-up?
I could have misread this too, because I don't even have my glasses, but on here, it says like the technology violation is both a major and a minor.
Correct.
So which one is it?
For,
it depends on,
Well, it
depends on the
says miss,
situation.
if,
Depending on what you're using.
student use of electronic devices is a major, and then cell phone use is a minor, electronics.
Because you can get into some pretty
serious things
serious.
online.
But if you're not
Yeah.
supposed to have it anyway, is it a,
They're talking about just maybe the technology could be your Chromebook.
Right,
Not
so
necessarily just your
the
cell phone.
major is more use of Chromebook for
use of technology
getting out of the
resources?
boundaries that are expected on our guide walls that are.
Policies or procedures regarding student use of electronics devices.
They have
Major.
these on them all the time, so they could be doing something inappropriate.
Right,
Which
but
would make that a
is it a major or a minor?
For,
Or it can it be anything, a cell phone?
what is it, when you say?
The cell phone use, is that a
Could be a
major or
minor.
minor? Or can you not classify that?
New York State classifies it as a minor because we can't, major behaviors are suspendable, right? And New York State says that it's not suspendable. So I think that it would be needed to have something else in with it. But, you know, it does talk about the cell phone electronics violation on the last page. And maybe we should go a little bit more in
As far as
depth.
the cell phone and technology, having your cell phone out, which you shouldn't, would be a minor if it's redirected and the student puts their cell phone
Right.
away. But using your cell phone to record a fight is a major technology violation. That's the difference between a minor and a major.
Okay.
It's what your cell phone is used for. If you have your cell phone out, you just put it away, you put it away, they document the fact that your cell phone's out, that would be a minor.
And then
If
if
you're
you
using your cell
use it
phone to
for
record a fight
something-
and send the fight over,
yeah.
that becomes a major
Got it.
technology violation.
And I just have two questions. Because majors, obviously, there's phone calls going home, parents are knowing what's going on. Minors, maybe not so much. So when things come, parents might get upset because they've never heard, granted, they can go on School Tool and look to see their kids' majors and minors. How are we helping parents navigate through their end of technology so that they're on top of what's going on with the majors and minors that their students might be having? So, you know, when we get to situations where there are suspensions, or if it comes to a superintendent's hearing or an appeal, like, sometimes parents, they had no idea. Well, they've never even had a minor, but they may have. So how do we help our parents navigate that
Is that on
piece?
School Tool?
Can you can, right? Parents can find that on School Tool, their
Parents
kids'
can
majors
find
and
that on
minors.
School Tool.
Three minors within a week becomes a major referral because it demonstrates a pattern of minor insubordination. But parents can check, and minors are always on School Tool. We don't typically call home for a minor because it's just documentation of an incident that didn't really rise to the level of additional discipline from the office. So a minor you think of as more of a teacher documentation of something that could develop into a pattern. So if you have your cell phone out 3 times within a week, that becomes a major referral because it demonstrates a pattern of behavior that needs further intervention from the main office. But typically in minor, if you get one every 3 weeks, a parent wouldn't find out unless they went on school tool and checked. And once it's processed, it does show up on school tool. So really, I mean, other than putting it on the report cards and asking parents to be diligent about checking school tool, it's really up to them to stay on top of it. Because unless their student is demonstrating a pattern of behavior that results in additional interference from the office or intervention from the office, then they're not gonna find out. But that's what a minor is. It's really just documentation of something that didn't rise to the level of needing a principal to be involved, but you also want to note it in case it becomes a pattern.
More like a
that is
classroom
perpetual
referral as
behavior
opposed
that
to.
needs further intervention.
Now, positive note, the families that I've had in front of me at superintendent's hearings, they have not been shocked by any of the, because we go over the student's prior discipline.
Yep.
And I haven't had
Okay.
anyone come out and say, oh, we knew nothing about this. They
Okay, good.
were pretty well aware of
Okay.
what was happening.
And my second question is, when we talked about the hallway, you know, discipline and what, we're not using Smart Pass anymore. How are we monitoring where our kids are? I mean, how many times they go out of a classroom in a period of time? I mean, I know that that was something new that I was using this year in my district, and at first it seemed like it wasn't going to work. But, you know, if a same student is trying to get out of their class at the first 10 minutes of every single bell, like, you know, isn't that the part of why we had our Smart Passes out there, so we didn't have kids out in the hallway all the time? Or so that whoever's monitoring can see, oh, hey, Johnny's been out 6 times today. He should have only had 3 opportunities to be out of the classroom. Like, why are we not using Smart Pass? And what are we doing to monitor what's going on in the hallways of all of our buildings, since we're not using Smart Pass?
I could say anecdotally, because I was at the high school today, because Ryan was by himself for a while, and I will say that the building aides, they know the kids are gonna be out in the hallways 10 times a day, and they're redirecting them, they're walking them to their class, they're saying, it's not as systematic as a Smart Pass, but
Right.
I'm saying that the amount of building aides that we have spread out throughout the building, whose job is to supervise the hallways and make sure students are where they're supposed to be, they know the kids who are gonna be out 10 times a day, and they are redirecting and walking them back to class and kind of keeping an eye on it.
So we feel like it's being held
It was
pretty
quiet
accountable
when I
for
was
what
there.
our hallways, we're not having I mean, we're always gonna have some disruption at
And then
any
there's-
given day, but we feel like we're doing okay, that we got rid of the Smart Passes, like.
That I can't answer, I can just say when I
Okay.
was there, it was pretty calm, and I did have a
Okay.
couple of students that were in the hallways, one was sitting at the end of the hall, one had tried to get out and walked around again, and the aides knew exactly who they were, they knew what they were
Yeah.
doing, and they brought them right to where they needed to go, and the students went with them. So I'm assuming they develop relationships with them throughout the course of the year, but you know who your frequent flyers are.
You do.
of course.
You too.
Mhm.
All right,
Does
just,
that get documented though still?
Not necessarily.
Because I know that helps you, like you said, the minors with the data points.
The
Does
teacher
that-
could be documenting if they're late to class or if they're skipping class, but as far as what happened in the hallways today, I don't know, because I didn't go that far. I just was walking around the building a bunch of times and I saw the same kids and the aides saw them, and like I said, they brought them back to their classes.
just was curious if we were having any more or less issues
And
without
again,
using Smart
a lot of
Pass.
that falls on the teachers and their response within their classrooms. And then if they need support, extra levels of support for kids who are not showing up, or if we see that there's a regular pattern, then we address that through our student support teams.
Okay.
That's the constant challenge, is to have
Yeah.
120 staff members be consistent with supervision.
Understood.
Instruction even, and as far as documented behavior, it is a challenge,
Yeah.
but, you know, like I said, I think the data that we get is about as accurate as we can hope for at this
I
point.
think to Mark's point, most of our adults know who the kids who need more support are.
Okay.
How,
Thank you.
and just going along with the Smart Passes and stuff and where kids are supposed to be, how do we know that they're actually where they're supposed to be? Do you remember, like, I remember, kids were going to band, or they were going to, like, extra phys ed classes just because they weren't, you know, they didn't have anything going on in English, they just like left that class and they were going somewhere else. Do we have, if we're not using Smart Passes, do we know that our kids are actually where we're supposed to be?
Where they're supposed
Or do you think it's a problem? Or do we not know? I don't know. Is it something that,
It is
Maybe
a
not.
problem if it is a subject area where students need to be in a learning environment. If kids, typically, if they're, need to make up, like if they go to a gym class, a phys ed class, out of a study hall,
Yeah.
that's not as much of a problem, but if they're going to PE class out of math
Yeah.
and avoiding, then that's where we identify an issue, and I know Nate could probably speak to that a little more. At the high school, that's typically the case, is kids aren't, or shouldn't be, where they're not already assigned or have access to go, where people have talked and said.
Is there a good
"This kid's
process
coming."
in place for kids coming out of study halls where you would know where they are?
So
At any-
teachers sign them out. So like if they're gonna go make up a phys ed class, for example, the phys ed teachers give them a pass and say, you can come during this time, they look up the kid's schedule, and if
Okay.
they have a bell that's available, then they'll come down during that free period. So-
Okay.
So do you think that most kids are where they should be during the day? They're not like leaving other
Most kids,
classrooms?
sure. I mean, our number one referral is skipping, but
So,
our biggest, that's always been our biggest.
Where do they go when they skip? Can't leave the
Various
building anymore.
places. Most of them are skipping study hall. So a lot of times what happens during those
True.
20-minute lunches is you've got kids that will, let's say, they have bell 5, they have lunch. Bell 6 is a study hall, and sometimes they'll stay instead of going back to study hall, so they're skipping. So that's always been the biggest one, and it's usually during study halls.
Okay.
do we feel like we know where our students are? Do you feel like it's a problem? Whereas if Brenda was supposed to be in my class, do you feel like, if I report her missing, do we have a system in place to
To
go
know
and
where
track her
they are.
down like immediately? I know that we're dealing with it at, just at our middle school.
It
Is there a
depends.
process?
I mean, I'd have to say, in my last 5 to 6 years in this position, we couldn't find a kid once, and that was this year.
Do you look for them though?
Oh, of course. Yeah, normally we know where they are somewhere. So like if it's a typical kid that doesn't go to study hall, let's say, we normally know where they're at. So it may
You can find
take 1
them.
or 2 times for us to
You can
go
find
and
them,
say, this
so.
is generally where they are, and we can find them. This one particular student was in the
Right.
bathroom, couldn't find him, had no idea where he was. And he's relatively new to us, so that was a bit of a struggle, but.
So for the most part, when kids are supposed to be in English and social studies, that's where they are, you would say?
Yeah.
A lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you're gonna email us with any specifics?
Yes,
as well?
yep, I circled it if I can find it. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but
Thank you.
definitely not
Thank you
least.
very much.
Thank you.
I just want to, you guys didn't go over these papers about how the SOAR applies to the different, elementary, middle school, and
High school.
high school. But reading through it, I like how you're giving suggestions, it's really actionable, and it really is good for the ages that they're targeting too, so. I like that you guys did this, I like that it's kinda
Teams have
easy
spent a lot of
to
time.
see,
That's a
yeah,
lot of what our
like
summer-
Classroom, hallway, cafeteria, I'm an
Summer
assembly,
professional development
Yeah.
is building those systems.
and that's a great job.
All right, so last but not least, Super's gonna,
So the main agenda item for the budget update was the tax cap calculation, so I can skip to that slide. I was able to calculate the tax cap. The only thing that could possibly change down a ways in red would be the pilot's receivable in 26-27. This is my estimate. I do have an email out to our contact to update that if need be. But all else is pointing to a tax cap of 3.11% for 26-27, meaning that's the maximum amount that we would be able to increase our tax levy. I included a couple of arrows. I'm going to do my best to touch a little bit on the tax base growth factor and how that relates to the tax cap. Ours unfortunately did go down a bit, but we still have a tax base growth factor, which is good. So that 0.35%, that's our tax base growth factor, represents any new developments or any new properties that have been added basically to the tax base that help absorb the levy. So in talking to our fiscal advisor, who describes this very eloquently, you know, that's all, like I said, new property that helps absorb the tax levy. So if you think of it that way, that's additional this coming year. So the increase that the taxpayers would actually feel if we went to the cap would be 2.76%, because you would take away the 0.35% that's represented by this new growth in the area. And that's something that we haven't really talked about before, so I thought I would do my best to give a little context to that portion of the tax cap calculation. I know that in the past, we've looked at different revenue scenarios depending on what tax increase we decided. So I did put together 3 different scenarios, not saying it has to be one of these 3, but I just took 2%, 2.5%, and then the cap being 3.11%, and where that would put our revenue, given what we have for a state aid projection, what my estimate for pilots is right now, my estimate for other miscellaneous revenue and federal aid, and I left in that $550,000 of potentially appropriating some reserves. So if we were to go to the cap, it would get us just over 93.2 million in revenue.
And currently our budget for this year is
94.2, just under 94.2. So it's still a little bit less than what our current operating budget is. And again, we're operating well within our budget this year, which is good news. You know, a lot of the reason for that is because we're using our 3.8 million in reserves, but it is allowing us to stay within our budgeted amount, which is progress for us. So right now my projections are pointing to not spending the entire 94.2 million, meaning we won't necessarily need to implement that reserve use plan. So without the reserves, we would be looking at another potential operating deficit. The reserves are really what's saving us this year. So something to keep in mind as we're thinking forward as well. And really not having that level of reserve to use in 26, 27.
But if you don't spend all of our reserves that we used this year, we don't want to use them, but we could roll that over for next year?
We'll have to use some of it.
Okay.
And
and it won't be able to be allocated until the end of the year, right?
pretty much.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, as you had said, Jess, I think the last time we talked about it, another area of focus is we don't want to have zero reserves.
Right.
Because, you know, the other, another reserve that we want to focus on rebuilding is our insurance reserve. Because if we ever have another year where insurance does something crazy that we're not expecting, having that insurance reserve allows us to have a little backup. And, you know, right now we don't have that. So, you know, I think we need to be really careful about leaning too heavily on the reserves we have left. And, you know, our fund balance is not anywhere near the 4% that we're allowed to have. So that's another kind of longer term goal, is to try to get our fund balance up closer to the 4% that the state allows.
And currently our reserves are allocated into, they're allocated into places where they're actually making more than 3.11% yearly. Correctly?
Yes, they're invested.
In safe investments that are actually making more than a 3% return.
Yeah.
So
A little bit more.
it's going to help us long-term and not
Right, to
burden the
keep them
community.
invested rather than
Yeah.
keep pulling from them. Yeah. So, March 1st is the date that I have to submit the tax cap to the comptroller, meaning I have to submit what our tax cap is. I think around that time is when we try to make the decision as well. So I wanted to make sure the board had this information and can start to mull it over. And at the next meeting, we'll have to accept the cap, meaning just we accept that that's our number.
And I know that there is some, I've been reading some articles that there's a lot of politicians that are trying to fight for small city schools to increase, and that they do know that they're not increasing their levies as much as inflation is happening. But we won't know that until after our budget's done, so we have to
Plan ahead.
plan ahead.
Questions?
Thank you for putting those 3% together for
No
us to
problem.
look
If
at.
you want to see anything else, I can add to it for sure.
And thanks for explaining the levy.
No problem.
And that our levy is changing, so that's good to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so last year our cap was, if you remember, 2.15. So being that we're expecting our debt to increase, that's the main driving factor that increased our cap for this year.
But we'll have more debt next year, right, on the books, so that might be better for the following school year, right? Isn't that how that works?
Hopefully,
right, didn't our debt
going
come
forward,
down?
our debt should stay a little bit,
Consistent?
yes, a little flatter.
We want to keep it flat.
Yeah. So you don't see the peaks and valleys with
Yeah.
your tax cap either.
Yeah. All right,
That's all for me.
thank you.
Okay, that's it from
All
the
right.
superintendent's report.
Well, thank you all. All right, action 5.01, accept financials. Will someone move it?
Move it.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Action 5.02, to accept the disposal of the surplus property.
Second.
Nick and Tim. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Action 6.01, to approve the Committee on Special Education.
Move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Action 6.02, to accept the resignation of a board member.
Move it.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Would one of my colleagues be interested in batching 7.01 to 7.07 personnel?
Move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Okay, we're gonna move on to board forum. Mrs. O'Brien, would you like to start?
Whew, it's been a good start to budget, and I hope that we have, thank you for giving us some more information on that, and that we have some wisdom, and while figuring out how to stay within budget. Also, congratulations to all of the Fulton Junior High students that made it to the All-County, which was area All-State actually,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
not even
not
All-County, it was area All-State. And 25 of them, which is great. And I think that really is a true testament to how strong our music program is, and hats off to them. It's a great skill to have, and it's fabulous to see.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Prawl?
I agree with my colleague, and I want to say thank you, as usual, to all you guys for all the work that you put into it. And you explain things that makes it a little easier to understand.
Ms. Mayville?
Yeah, congratulations to all of our music students. That is
That's amazing.
exceptional.
Especially
for sure.
that we had two seventh graders,
Yep.
so that's,
It's always nice to see and hear about what our students are doing and excelling in. And I actually am really looking forward to the Battle of the Books. I know that they usually come and they do their presentation here. I remember it from last year, so that's really cool. And they're kids being excited to read. That's huge. So I'm excited about that. And thank you guys for being so patient and explaining and answering questions about really hard and touchy subjects. And I appreciate you being patient with those questions, so thank you. And thanks for, of course, you gave us good news tonight.
I did.
I think so. Well, better news than I was expecting, actually. You know what I mean? I think it's good news. Well, it could be a much worse. Well, yeah, I think it's good news.
We're getting there.
It is. Like a 311 is the cap, but
Yeah.
But
the responsibility,
Yes.
so
less
that.
than. I heard
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good piece
I
of
think.
information to share. Yeah, no, that is good news.
Trying to be positive here.
Mr. DeJalon?
Again, congratulations to all the students in the orchestra, choir, and band who made area all-state. And what was the one prior to that? All-county? And to those who made all-county. Thank you for the update on discipline. It's nice to see that we have something that we're going to have consistency. And I didn't think about it until you had it up there. Discipline for disabled. You know, which obviously should be somewhat different than people who are conscious or making an effort to need discipline, if that makes sense. You know, anyway, I hope that came across well. And then, hey, things on the budget. You always do a great job. Always look forward to it. And as long as you have a smile on your face, I'll have a smile on mine.
Mr. Connors?
Congratulations again to the students in the music program. I think it's great every year to be hearing, you know, no matter what grade level it is, going on and excelling beyond and, you know, representing as a district amongst these other groups, that we're always strong and having a great showing. I also know there's a lot of sectionals and different things going on in the sports world, so congratulations to all of our student athletes that are out there competing. And all the other students, I think sometimes, you know, other students can fall through the cracks, but we have a lot of people doing a lot of diverse things, and I think it's important to celebrate all the successes we're seeing across the district, because a lot of these students, no matter what they're doing, they're putting their hearts on the line doing this stuff. So I think it's important that you get a shout out as well. And I'm gonna, you know, leave it with there. I mean, I always appreciate all the reports and stuff, but, you know, the students are the reason, you know, really we're all here to really shout out, give them the support they need, and, you know, later on, seeing when they go on to succeed later is worth every penny.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I just like that February slowly leads into my favorite month, which is Music in Our Schools Month. I hope that on the upcoming meetings, we might have some of our students coming in. I know it was nice to have their teacher here tonight, but sometimes it's nice to be able to see the students themselves and just, you know, congratulate them in person. So, and keep in mind the schools around us, some of them have already started their musical season. So if you guys are needing to get out and do something inside, lots of schools in our county are doing their musicals. They've already started. So
You would have loved it yesterday at the girls' basketball game at West Hill. I think West Hill's doing Mamma Mia, and so
Yes.
during all of the breaks where they
They
could
were
play
singing their
music,
songs?
they were playing Mamma Mia music. So there
All
was
right.
that
I'm
overlap.
thinking-
I thought that was pretty cool.
I'm thinking we may have to maybe do something like
Yeah,
that.
I thought that was neat. I'm like, what is up with this music? I don't
That's
get
great.
it. But
I
yeah,
absolutely
and then
love
you
it.
make the connection, yeah.
Yeah.
We've
so
got
that's
Grease
cool.
coming up, so.
There you go.
No, I do have some breaking news I can share.
Ooh.
Golden Sun has very kindly offered to bring our elementary students
Oh, that's
again this year
wonderful.
to view our musical.
Huge shout out to
that's
Golden
great.
Sun. We
Great.
appreciate you for all that you do because our students really do enjoy going over to the high school.
It's important for them to see
And
it.
being a former alumni, being able to perform in front of the schools helps get you ready for that, you know, upcoming show weekend or, so, yeah, that's great. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Next month, right?
Yeah, yeah, so that's great. All right, I hope that everybody has a relaxing, spring break. I hope that some of you take some time to enjoy some family time. You know what? I'm really not a winter person, Mark, but thank you for catching that.
Wishful thinking.
Because I want it to be 95 degrees out, not -5 degrees out, so, yes, I'm sorry, a winter break.
He saw a shadow.
And, yeah, I did.
Is the internet sitting shadow? It's such a.
I mean, I'm a little bitter on that one. That put me in a very sad mood that day, but.
It was like 7 below, so there was no plunge.
So for our staff and our families, please enjoy a winter break so that you can go out and shovel snow for your families. That's probably what you'll be doing. So, with that, we can move into second public set. I don't think we have anybody left, so there will be no public forum. We do not have another executive session, so I am going to go ahead and ask for someone to move action 9.01 adjournment.
Move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Passes 600. Everyone have a great evening.
You too.